Everybody is afraid. And then we see the seventh trumpet is described at the end of chapter 11. At the blowing of this trumpet, it's the official end of the tribulation. But we're only in chapter 11 in the book of Revelation. So how are we at the end of the tribulation here? The blowing of the seventh trumpet goes on. Well, you guys remember the chiastic? How could you forget, right? Okay, we know Revelation chapters 1 through 6 occur, and this is a timeline. Okay, this is time. And we know that chapters 7 through 11 occur this way on time, and down here we have Revelation chapters 12 through 19. And this time point here, because this is where the rapture occurs, and in chapter 11, we're talking about the seventh trumpet over here. The beginning of chapter 11, we're told about 1,260 days, so that's halfway between the tribulation. This time period here is the tribulation. And then we've got Revelation chapters 20 through 22 out here. So on the timeline, this gives us an overview of the tribulation, and then when we go through chapters 12 through 19, we go back and we get details of what's going on over here. And so that's what we've been doing. We're up to chapter 14 already. So just as a reminder of that, so when we get to so even though the seventh trumpet is described by chapter 11, we know that is the end of the tribulation. Because when we look at chapter 12 is a description of Satan the dragon. Well, he's been around before man was created. And in chapter 12, we see a description of 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns. The 7 heads represent the 7 major kingdoms of the world, and those were the Egyptian kingdom, the Assyrian kingdom, Egyptian, Mesopotamia, Assyria, Babylon, Medes and Persians, Greeks, Romans, and then the 7th kingdom is the kingdom that the Antichrist sets up. So those 7 heads describe the 7 major kingdoms of world history. The 10 horns, all those 10 horns are on just one head. Okay, so we had a picture of that when we were there. And there are 7 crowns on each one of those heads representing those kingdoms. There was a king, so those crowns represent a king from each one of those kingdoms. In chapter 12, we see Satan is cast out of heaven. And we know that Satan is cast out of heaven when we read chapter 12. But Satan, a lot of people think that Satan's cast out of heaven in the middle of the tribulation when we get to chapter 12. But it says that he was overcome by the blood of the Lamb. And all of heaven rejoiced. When did the blood of the Lamb occur? The shedding of the blood of the Lamb. Way back 2,000 years ago, long before any of this is happening. Why would God wait till the middle of the tribulation and cast him out if he's cast out by the blood of the Lamb? He did it. Satan was cast out when Jesus died on the cross. Okay, so Satan has been out of heaven since then. And Satan is at war with both the Jews and the Christians, and we read about that in chapter 12. So we know that chapter 12 is not describing something in the middle of the tribulation or even something after chapter 11. Revelation chapter 12 is giving us history. So it's going back, just like a flashback, giving us history. So this is another clue that we know this is not continuous on the timeline. It goes back into this timeline. Chapter 13 is a description of the Antichrist and the beast. And then again we see the 7 heads, 10 horns, and 10 crowns. And he's the 7th head with a crown. And on that head, that last head with the crown, he's got 10 horns. Means he's going to have 10 people, major world powers, ruling with him. And now the prophecy teachers believe that those 10 crowns are not necessarily, not 10 crowns, 10 horns. Because we've got the seventh head, we've got the seven, there's the seven heads here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 heads, and this seventh head has 10 crowns on it. And each one of these horns has a crown. And it was thought in days past, and this seventh head is the Antichrist because he's the king, and it was thought in many days past that these 7 crowns on these 10 crowns on these 10 horns, hard to think and draw and talk at the same time. These 10 horns each have a crown on them. In days past, it was thought that each one of these crowns on the horns represented a nation. But now the prophecy teachers believe it's going to represent the oligarchs of our day, the people who are very, very wealthy, like the Gates, like Gates and Tesla, and who else is out there? Soros. No, he's not rich enough. Won't be him. He's a puppet. But there's oligarchs out there. I can't think of them.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Facebook.
Zuckerberg.
Yes. The Rothschilds. Who is Google?
What about Rothschilds?
Rothschilds actually are the puppets too. Oh no, the Rothschilds, I was thinking of the Kennedys when you said that. And the Rockefellers. Yes, Rothschilds. They're going to be in there too.
Yeah.
Soros, he's one of the puppets. He's not rich man. No, he's one of the puppets. But there's another one. Elon Musk. Okay, so guys like that. Anyways, they may not be the oligarchs. I'm just saying people like them. We don't know who the oligarchs are. They don't even know who they are yet. They won't know because they are given kingdoms by the Antichrist in the tribulation. So they don't even know who they're going to be. We don't know who they're. But I'm just saying people like them. They're not going to be heads of nations. Because who runs the world right now? It's the very, very rich. They're the ones calling the shots for the whole world. And so they are most likely going to be the 10 horns with the 10 crowns. It's not going to be heads of nations. It's going to be the ones who have the money.
They said Vanguard too. Vanguard.
I can't hear you.
Vanguard.
Vanguard?
And BlackRock. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know, but
don't.
people like them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what chapter 13 is about. And then the other half of chapter 13 describes the false prophet and what it's going to do. And if you go back to the original Greek and you read your Bible in a modern translation, so that's not the King James, that's not the NIV. I don't know about the New American Standard unless they've updated it. But the new translations, like an ESV and the Holman and things like that, when you read about the Antichrist and the beast, it's not called a he or a she. It's called an it. It's referred to as an it in the Bible. So if you go back and find a modern translation of the Bible, the Greek translates to the pronoun it. So both the false prophet and the Antichrist/beast are an it. They don't have a sex anymore. So it exercises authority of the Antichrist and forces the earth and its inhabitants to worship the Antichrist. Now, there's a lot of nations around the world that force its people to worship its ruler. Fortunately for us, we're not one of those. But during the tribulation,
Not yet.
Yet, we're not one of those yet. Good point. Good point, Jeanette. Both the beast and the false prophet use lies, deceit, fear, and power to control the people. And that we see happening right now. Lies, deceit, fear, and power. Our president is writing all kind of executive orders that are illegal according to our Constitution. And people are taking that and lying and saying, you must do this, when that's not the truth. You can contest that in court. You don't have to do what they're saying if it goes against our Constitution, because it's not legal what he's doing. And everyone during the tribulation, it will be legal for them to use lying, deceit, fear, and power to control people. And they will. And they will lead the people of the earth, unfortunately, to their eternal destruction in the lake of fire. The false prophet will force everyone to receive the mark of the beast, either on their forehead or their right hand. It has to be the right hand. It's interesting, it says the right hand. I don't know why. I don't know the significance of that. But it's got to be the right hand or the forehead. And he forces them. So if you refuse to take the mark of the beast, or lasers, I'm not sure how they're going to do it then, but you're going to get killed. Okay, chapter 14 was what we left off with last spring. 144,000 Orthodox Jewish men are described. And we talked about they're the first Jewish converts to Christianity in the tribulation. They are the main evangelists of the tribulation. Chapter 14 describes two sets of angels, and I'm going to go into detail more about this when we get to chapter 15. Because I kept rewriting chapter 15. I started, like the week after we finished class last spring, I started my notes on chapter 15, and I would start it, and I would get stuck, and I kept starting it and stopping all summer long, and I'm like, a week before, and then of course my plane didn't get back late. We got back late from our vacation. It was delayed 2 days, and then I had to get my kids all packed up and take them off to college, and I'm like, am I ever going to finish 15 before my class starts? And so I had the hardest time writing chapter 15, and I think it was because the Lord wanted to slow me down and show me some new things. So we're going to cover that when we get to chapter 15. But suffice it to say that Revelation chapter 14 has two sets of angels. The first set of angels that are described give messages to the people of the earth. So I don't know if they fly above the earth. We don't know how they get the messages to the people of the earth. A lot of supernatural things are going to be happening during the tribulation, so it's very possible that they fly and they're caught on camera and the people of the earth are given these messages. Then there's another set of angels described in chapter 14, and they call out directions to beings in the heavenly realm to harvest the earth. And when I first wrote chapter 14, we talked about the first person that's described in this. So it's the second set of angels, and the first angel and the second set of three angels. The first person we see described, and go back and read that, is not an angel at all, but it can only be Jesus Christ from that description. So in Jesus Christ is sitting on a cloud, he's wearing a victor's crown. And so there's three things that he could be doing during this description in chapter 14. This could be a description of the rapture, because Jesus is sitting on a cloud, and he's told to harvest the earth, because the earth is ripe, which is interesting, because when Jesus comes for the rapture, he's coming for his bride. You don't really think of it as a harvest when you come for your bride. But it could be that, it could be a description of that. Or Jesus sitting on a cloud could be collecting that 144,000 Jews. Remember in the middle of the tribulation, Jesus says there will be no more delay. And he said, you must prophesy again. And he sends two witnesses. So either those 144,000 Jews have been killed because they refused to receive the mark of the beast, or Jesus harvests them. He collects them from the earth. So that's what that guy, and I didn't talk about this last spring. This is something the Lord new showed me, something new the Lord showed me. Or it could be a gathering at the end of the tribulation, before the battle of Armageddon. Jesus is removing the people from the war zone, the Christian believers from the war zone, before he wipes them out with one word out of his mouth at the battle of Armageddon. So it's not real clear in the Bible what Jesus is gathering in chapter 14. And when we study 15, I am going to propose that I believe it's the second one, that Jesus is collecting his 144,000 Jewish people. And we'll talk about that when we get to 14. It's kind of very interesting. It's something new I never heard before, and I struggled with this and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. All summer long, kept starting and stopping this and asking God. And each day even I would work on it, and I'd get a little bit more. And the next day a little bit more. I mean, it was a real struggle. And I think the Lord, and when he first showed it to me, I'm like, I had a hard time accepting it. And I'm not asking you to accept it. You search the scriptures, you read your Bible, you pray about it. It doesn't matter what we think is happening there. What's going to happen is going to happen. Okay? So this is just what I think the Lord has revealed to me. This is what I've come to believe, but that doesn't have to be your belief. It's open. It's open. So those are the three possibilities it could be. And you can choose whichever one you want to hold on to. Okay. I don't have a lot of time to do this, so we're gonna, this page that you guys have here, those of you that have my copies, did you, Jenny, did you get a copy?
She's gonna take these home.
You had 2 copies, where are the other
It's
copies?
right here.
So,
She's gonna take these. I'll print them off at home when I get home. I didn't have any ink.
okay, I understand. Okay, so you 2 are the only ones that have actual copies. I'm gonna run through this real quick and then we're gonna be done teaching you. I'm sorry I ran over. Okay, what you wanna write on your papers here, and I'm gonna show this real close. Is this whole thing showing up there?
Not
Do
so
I need
much.
to come closer?
Yeah, that's better. A little bit up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, those of you at home, pause it. Write all that down. Okay, here in class, what we're gonna do is, where it says the seals, seals 1, right underneath where it says the rapture. So you're gonna put a little squiggly line there, and I'll walk through so you can see it. Right underneath where it says the rapture, you're gonna write Revelation chapter 6, because that's Revelation chapter 6. Okay, write a little squiggly right to the place that's underneath the rapture. Okay, and that's chapter 6. So I'm going to show you where these chapters show up on this chart. Right underneath the rapture. You want to go underneath where it says rapture. Okay? That's chapter 6. Chapter 8 is the 7th trumpet. So put a little squiggly line there for chapter 8 on this chart. Y'all should have this chart.
Ours just prints it a different color.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, on chapter 8, you're going to put a little squiggly mark that says, and so we're still under the seals. We're under seal 7, right, chapter 8. So seal 7 is chapter 8. Okay? And then between 6 and 8, you want to draw a line that's chapter 7. 7 is, remember, we talked about a whole series of events that happens between the 6th seal and the 7th seal. So we're still in the column with the seals. You see that? So right in between, we're on the seals columns there. So this last one here, the 7th one is chapter 7. And then between the 2 is chapter 7. Okay, so between seal 6 and seal 7 is chapter 7. Okay. Then on the trumpets column, you want to go down to the bottom of the 4th trumpet. So make a little squiggly mark to the bottom of the 4th trumpet. That's all of chapter 8. Remember chapter 8 was 1 through, trumpets 1 through 4. Okay, so the bottom of the 4th trumpet is chapter 8. Then trumpets 5 and 6 are chapter 9. So trumpets 5 and 6 are chapter 9. And then it says Battle of Armageddon. That's the 7th trumpet. Write chapter 19 on that. Chapter 19. So the 7th trumpet, the middle column. Okay. Battle of Armageddon. That's chapter 19. So where it says Battle of Armageddon, that whole little bottom section there. Yep, that whole section. Right here. Battle. Chapter 19.
Does it?
Okay.
No, ours is in a
Did you guys get that? Okay. Did you guys get that? Okay, and then we're going to go over to the bowls. The bowls 1 through 6, so they're kind of separated. That's Revelation chapter 16. So label the bowls. Chapter 16, Revelation chapter 16 are the bowls, 1 through 6. And then the seventh bowl is Revelation chapter 17 and 18. Revelation. Oh, yeah, see, it comes out different. Oh, no, yours is exactly the same. Is it? Yeah. Oh, maybe I'll make copies of this. Do it, we can make a copy of this for you afterwards. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the bowls are this column.
Oh, this is, oh, right there.
Yeah, the bowls are this third column. Okay, the bowls. So the first 6 bowls are chapter 16, and then the seventh bowl is Revelation chapter 17 and 18. Okay, now, if you turn this sideways and write time, this way. So turn it, so you've got the seals on the bottom. Turn your page this way. And time runs this way. Okay, time runs from the seals, the starting of time, down to the end of time. Okay. You can take this chart now, and you can go up to any person and explain the whole book of Revelation from this one page. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So you can all be teachers of the book of Revelation. Okay? You can all be teachers of the book of Revelation. And it shows you on time. The first thing that's going to happen are the seals. When the seventh seal, and we've got the 6th seal open, and then the 7th seal ushers in the 7 trumpets. So that's the next thing in time. We have the trumpets. But when we get to the 5th trumpet, that's when the bowls are introduced. The 5th trumpet occurs in the middle of the tribulation. So that's when the bowls are introduced. So the bowls are tucked in along with trumpets 5, 6, and 7. So you can explain to someone that even though chapter 11, basically, it's not on here. Even though chapter 11 ends with the 7th trumpet, time-wise, you've got the bowls tucked in on the second half of the tribulation there. So you can explain this time flow to anybody. And with the notes we just went over today, you can explain in more detail what's going on through the whole book of Revelation. Isn't that cool? All right.